كلية الفقه الحنفي تقدم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, mashallah, welcome back to lesson 4 now. We have of these cases. Hopefully, we're developing an understanding of these. And as I said, the author has not, I think the order of it could be slightly different. The order could have been where he discusses the different components in detail first before he talks about case issues, but he jumped into discussing case issues, especially the ones where it's got two parties claiming for something similar. Anyway, we've kind of done a lot of those. Now he moves on to how to take the oath. What words are said in the oath, and how does a person take the oath? And we already discussed that he must, the judge must warn them of the gravity of the issue, and that if they don't take an oath, then the case will be judged against them, and so on and so forth. But now in this particular section we're going to be dealing with how the oath is taken, what words to say, and so on and so forth. So let's start that off. وَالْيَمِينُ إِنَّمَا هِيَ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى دُونَ غَيْرِهِ. Obviously the oath has to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now remember, the oath is only when there's no witness, there's no witnesses provided, there's no proof, and there's no evidence presented. So then the defendant has to take an oath. So it has to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't take an oath with anybody else, of course, assuming that this is a Muslim, right? He's going to discuss later if it's a non-Muslim, then what do they do? Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man kana minkum halifan," whoever is going to swear an oath from among you, فَلْيَحْلِفْ بِاللَّهِ أَوْ لِيَذَرْ. Either swear an oath with Allah, by Allah, otherwise abandon it. Don't swear an oath, right? So وَالْيَمِينُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى دُونَ غَيْرِهِ وَتُؤَكَّدْ بِذِكْرِ أَوْصَافِهِ تَعَالَى الْمُرْهِبَةِ. So it shouldn't just be a basic oath that Wallahi I did not do this, or Wallahi I don't owe him, Wallahi he is not correct. It's not basic like that, that by Allah this is not correct, or by Allah I don't owe him anything. It's not that simple. It has to be ratified. It has to be reinforced. It has to be strengthened by mentioning some of the characteristics of Allah, some of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially his intimidating attributes, right? He says بِذِكْرِ أَوْصَافِهِ تَعَالَى الْمُرْهِبَةِ كَقَوْلِهِ قُلْ وَاللَّهِ الَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ. So the judge should make them swear some really some really heavy oaths with some intimidating names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so it makes it more serious, so that they won't just think like, oh, I can just swear this oath and even if it's incorrect, even if I'm lying, even if I'm not entirely correct, so he better swear a proper oath. So that's what we're going to be discussing, how exactly to do that. So for example, the judge should say that by Allah, swear the oath this way: by Allah, besides whom there is no God, who is the knower of the unseen and the seen, right? الَّذِي يَعْلَمُ مِنَ السِّرِّ مَا يَعْلَمُ مِنَ الْعَلَانِيَةِ. Who knows that of the unseen, he knows everything of the unseen just as he knows everything of the seen. So basically everything is clear to him, right? Whether it's unseen or not seen, is hidden or apparent, he all knows everything. Now those aren't the exact words that they have to use those words, but it's something to that nature. He can increase and add more words to that, tell him to add more, he can put some less than that, right? What he shouldn't do though is he should not use any conjugation in there to make it two oaths. That becomes a bit more complicated. It should just be one oath with a string of characteristics, not that by Allah who is the most, who is the greatest, and because that could end up being multiple oaths, and there's a technicality there that could ensue from that. So it's more like Allah who is the greatest, the most merciful, the one with all the might, the avenger. So without any kind of conjugation like that, so that the oath is not seen as a repeat, because we can't, because he can only force him to swear one oath, right? One oath. And of course the judge can make him swear more oaths than that if he wants to, but that is the best option, the best practice is like that. One way to reconcile this is that if there's a person who is decent, who's well known for being like a decent, upright, reasonable person, then you don't need to force him to swear all these big oaths. But if there's somebody else, then you need to do that just so that they understand the gravity of the matter, so that they don't just swear anything, right, falsely. That's essentially what the reason for it is. Now, another opinion is that it depends on how the value of the claim. If the value of the claim is low, then even a small oath works for that, a basic oath works for that. But if it's a big claim, then make sure that they are made to swear something with more attributes and so on, right? Especially their very intimidating, heavy majesty based attributes, so that the person understands that I better tell the truth. La ilaha illallah. Now, there are certain cases, again, in which there was some discussion about this before, but now it's the more detailed discussion regarding this. In what cases can you not make somebody swear an oath? So وَلَا يُسْتَحْلَفُ بِالطَّلَاقِ وَلَا بِالْعِطَاقِ فِي ظَاهِرِ رِوَايَةٍ. According to the ظاهر riwayah, which means that our manifest transmissions of our madhab from Imam Muhammad, talaq, you can't get somebody to swear an oath regarding divorce, like the wife is claiming to her husband that he divorced me, right? She doesn't have any proof. Can he make to swear an oath that I did divorce or I did not divorce, right? وَلَا بِالْعَتَاقِ. Likewise, he can't do it for manumission. Did I free a slave or not free a slave? However, that was the original case. That was the case from Imam Muhammad's, our early Imam's times. However, some later scholars like Imam Qadi Khan and others are saying that no, even in cases like that, you can get them to swear the oath, right? Although the Sahih sound opinion is the early opinion. I think he's got a reason. He's got a reason for that. Is that because people don't mind swearing bad oaths? Swearing false oaths these days. So that's why. I'm sorry. I mentioned the case to you incorrectly, right? What the case is that, let's just say there's a case that person A is saying person B owes £10,000, and person B is saying, no, I don't, I'm willing to swear an oath. So is the judge allowed to make him swear an oath, that not just a standard oath that wallahi I don't owe him £10,000, but rather that if I don't owe him £10,000, and if I do owe him £10,000, then my wife is divorced, or that my slave is freed? Because that adds seriousness to it. That if he's lying, that means his wife is divorced, and that means he'll be living with her with zina, right? In fornication, or his slave would no longer be his, and he'd be forcing him to stay with him, right? At least between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are you allowed to do that? So according to the Zahiri way, you're not allowed to do that. So okay, so make sure that you get that correction and understanding. However, it's the later scholars who said that you are allowed to do that, because people, according to their time at least, Qadi Khan, who passed away in 592 Hijri, right? So that's good, you know, we're now in 1400 and something, that's 600. So that's 800 years, you know, just around 700 to 800 years ago. He's saying in his time, things are so bad now that there's people who are just willing to just swear a normal oath, wallahi, and then, you know, they deal with the consequences of it. So that's why he's saying that because there'd be a loss there, their wife would be divorced. I guess they had that much consciousness that my wife would be divorced, or my slave would actually be freed. Then that would deter them from swearing a false oath. So he was saying that in his time it should be allowed, right? Yeah, that is the case. Now, if a person refuses to swear their oath, in this case, we're not going to make any other judgment on that case. He's refused to swear the oath anyway, right? Okay, so now he's moving on to the discussion of other religions, people of other faiths in an Islamic state. If their case is brought to court, what do they swear by? So وَيُسْتَحْلَفُ الْيَهُودِي. So if there is a Jewish person who is brought to court, and it proceeds to where he must swear an oath, what does he swear? So his oath would be something like Billahi alladhi anzala at-Tawrata ala Musa, by Allah who has revealed the Torah, right, the Torah upon Moses, upon Musa alayhi salam. And if it's a Nazarene, a Christian, it'll be Billahi alladhi anzala al-Injila ala Isa. So it'd be something relevant to their belief, that by Allah who has revealed the Evangel, the Injil, the Bible upon Isa. And if it's a Majusi, meaning if it's a Magian, a fire worshipper, Billahi alladhi khalaqa an-nar, by Allah who created fire. Now, Allah definitely created fire, right? But aren't we kind of like validating their reverence of the fire? Well, we're saying something completely correct, that Allah is the creator of the fire. So we're still relating it back to Allah. But I guess we're mentioning fire because that's important for them, right? So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to make each person, each defendant take an oath based on their belief that they would take seriously and that is dear to them. Of course, if they just suffice with Allah, that would be sufficient. Just like if a Muslim did so, that would be okay, right? There is some more detail on that. This is according to what Imam Muhammad has mentioned in his Kitab al-Asl, which is one of the Zahir riwayah. Imam Abu Hanifa has a transmission in which he says that Yahudi, other than people who are Yahudi or Nasrani, they have to obviously swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can only swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they can't be made to swear all of these other things by Allah who created the hellfire and so on, right? So what about if it's an idol worshipper? So an idol worshipper, they might be revering a particular idol of some sort. Well, you can't do that because we completely disregard that. So they would actually have to swear an oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, right? Because remember, idol worshippers in those days used to also believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate creator. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَهُمْ. If you ask them who created them, لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ, right? They would say Allah. Right. Another thing is that if you want to make it more serious, what about if you took it into their temple or their church or something? It says no. وَلَا يُحَلَّفُونَ فِي بُيُوتِ إِبَادَاتِهِمْ. You're not going to take it to their places of worship, because it's makruh for people to for Muslims to enter them, because then it seems like you are revering that place. You are giving honor to that place, and that's incorrect according to this, right? وَلَا يَجِبُ تَغْلِيظُ الْيَمِينِ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ بِزَمَانٍ. So from this, it starts a new discussion. So he says now that it is not, he can do it, the judge can do it, but it's not obligatory for the judge to emphasize the yameen, make it more serious by mentioning a particular time. For example, to do it on Friday. Right, I'm doing this after Asr on Friday, which is one of the most noble times of the whole week. Right, it's not necessary to do that. It can be done anytime. In some cases, you can do that if it's going to bring about a better outcome, right, and more precaution. Likewise, you don't have to fix it to a particular place, like between the Ruknul Yamani and the Maqam, or the Rukn and the Maqam Ibrahim, the black stone Maqam Ibrahim, like, which is probably one of the most revered areas, or by the door of the Kaaba or whatever in Mecca, or by the mimbar of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Riyadul Jannah, right? Because the purpose of it is, who are you taking the oath by? You're taking the oath by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the focus, should be on him rather than the place and so on. So it's not obligatory. Yes, you can do it and make it more serious, make it done in the masjid or something like that. If you want to, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be like that. Okay. Now it jumps back to certain other cases now. So let's jump back into other cases. وَمَنِ ادَّعَى أَنَّهُ ابْتَاعَ أَيْ اشْتَرَى مِنْ هَذَا الْحَاضِرِ عَبْدَهُ بِأَلْفٍ. Okay. Whoever claims that they purchased from person B who's present there, his slave for 1,000. So person A's claimed, I purchased the slave for 1,000, or this laptop for £1,000 from this person. The defendant is denying it, says no, you did not buy it from me for 1,000, and the claimant doesn't have proof. If he has proof, then it's done. But the claimant doesn't have proof. Istahlafa billahi ta'ala. So now he's going to be made to swear an oath. What oath is he going to be made to swear in that case? So in some cases you have to make them swear particular oath so that it gets it perfectly right. Istahlafa billahi ta'ala, or ustuhlifa billahi ta'ala. He'll be made to swear an oath that ma baynakuma bay'un qa'imun fihi, that there has never been any sale transaction between you two regarding this computer. This computer has never been under a sale transaction between you two, or this slave, or whatever the item is. That's the way you say it, rather than did I buy it or not. Because it's possible that I bought it from him last year and then I sold it back to him. And now I'm just claiming it, but I had sold it back to him. So rather than get into all of that nitty-gritty and make a wrong case, the better way to do it is, we've never had a sale. Unless the case is that, yes, I had sold it to you first, then I bought it back, or I purchased it from you, then I give it back and now sold it to you again. That would be very particular. If it's just the normal thing that I purchased it off you for 1,000, right, give it to me, right? And the person say, no, you didn't buy it from me. Okay, so then he should be made to swear the oath, person B, that there's never been a sale transaction between us on this item. وَلَا يُسْتَحْلَفُ بِاللَّهِ مَا بِئْتُ. He should not be made to swear an oath that I didn't sell this. Because as I said, it's possible that he could have sold it and then annulled it. Or there could have been a money back clause, or a clause to cancel it. And then maybe he's done that. So then he'd be telling an untruth. Or maybe that was the case and I'm, the claimant is making the wrong case. So it's about, because the case is about, I bought it off you for 1,000, which means that it's still mine, meaning it is mine now. So make the guy swear the oath that it is, we've never had a sale transaction on this. Right. ويستحلف كذلك في الغصب بأن يقول له بالله ما يستحق عليك رده ولا يحلف بالله ما غصبت لاحتمال هبته. This is now the case that I am saying. The person A is claiming that he inappropriated this from me. He took it from me. It's not his. He just laid claim to it, and so on. He's taken it from me. So if the person A has no proof, when it comes to asking person B, the defendant, to swear the oath, what kind of oath should be sworn in that case? So the way he should be sworn is, by Allah, ما يستحق عليك رده. Right? So the Qadi will make him will say that you have to swear that there is no obligation on you to return it to him. Meaning that because if you had usurped it, you have to return it. So no, you don't have an obligation to return it. It's yours. They didn't say it's yours, saying that you don't have any obligation to return it. By Allah, you don't have any obligation to return it. That's what he's made to swear. He can't be made to swear that by Allah, I did not usurp it. Right? Why? Because maybe he has, maybe he received it as a gift from, maybe person A had gifted it to him and now he's just claiming it back. So they want to make this comprehensive. Because if a person given it to him as a gift and he went to now take it back, he has a right to, in certain cases, he has a right to take it back. But now he's saying that you usurped it. So person B, just to clarify everything, he just has to say, look, I'm not obligated to give it back. That is whether I usurped it from him, because he wouldn't be able to say that statement had he usurped it. But had he received it as a gift, then he can't make this statement that I don't have to give it back, because he does have to give it back in certain cases, right? Especially if the judge decides so. So that's why he has to say it that way, because either he has to give it back or pay its liability. Likewise in nikah, in a case of in a claim of nikah, So somebody's, a woman is claiming that there was you are married to me, or the man is claiming that there's no proof. So the judge will say to the defendant, Billahi ma baynakuma nikahun qa'imun fil hal. You have to swear by Allah that there is no nikah between you that is established at this point, that hasn't been broken, that hasn't been annulled, that hasn't been divorced. Like right now, you have to swear by Allah that there is no nikah right now between us. Because it could have been a nikah and there's been a irrevocable divorce. So then they're just going to go into, if that was the case, then it's going to go into, there's no nikah right now, but there was a nikah before, and maybe there's a side issue related to that. So it's just better that you just cut it and say, because that's the claim. The claim is that there is a nikah. If the guy said, there was a nikah, but I gave a divorce, but then I took her back, that would be a different claim. The claim here by the claimant is that there is a nikah with us. So the person is told to swear an oath, person B, the defendant, that there is no nikah right now between us. وَلَا يُحَلَّفْ بِاللَّهِ مَا تَزَوَّجْتُهَا. The defendant can't say that I never married him. Because you could have married him and then there could have been a divorce. So that's a different claim. That's a different issue. Likewise, when it comes to talaq, right, one person is saying that you divorced me. The wife is saying you divorced me. And he's saying, no, I didn't divorce you. So what if the wife doesn't have any proof that he divorced her, then the husband has to swear an oath that I did not divorce her. So in that sense, he has to be made to say, Billahi ma hiya ba'inun minka as-sa'a bima dhakart. That no, I am not separated from you by what you have mentioned. Rather than saying that I did not divorce you. I am not separated from you in the way that you have mentioned. So it makes it very particular to that case. And he can't be made to swear the oath that Billahi ma tallaqtuha. By Allah, I did not divorce her, because he could have divorced her and then taken her back. Because the claim is not about divorce. The claim is that we don't have a nikah between us anymore. Right? Or separation. That's the whole point of it. Because the husband ultimately can give a divorce right then and there if he wants to. Right? So it's possible that he divorced her and then after that they did nikah again. So to make this claim more worthwhile, right, it's like, no, I'm not separated from you by what you are claiming. That includes everything, and it cuts out any other possibility, which is going to be the ultimate aim, right? The hasil, which is that no, we're not married anymore, we're not together anymore, we're separated. Okay, we're moving on to some other cases now. This is there's a person who has possession of a house. وَإِذَا كَانَتْ دَارٌ فِي يَدِ رَجُلٍ. Right? There's a guy with possession of a house, a building. ادَّعَاهَا عَلَيْهِ إِثْنَانٍ. Now there are two claimants against that person. So let's call him person C. He's got the possession of the house. There's person A and B. Now we've got double claimants again. Right? They're both claiming that person A is claiming, I own that house, it's mine. Person B is also claiming, no, it's my house. Again, these could be two brothers claiming that they got it through inheritance and it's an uncle who's holding the house or whatever it is. Actually, the case is, the first case we're going to deal with is one person is claiming the entire house. One brother, A, is claiming the entire house. The other one is claiming half the house. They both have evidence. The first one has evidence that he owns the whole house, and the second one has evidence that he has half the house. How do you deal with that one now? We've already dealt with the case where they're both claiming the same thing, that the full house. Then it's going to become both of theirs and they're going to get right to half, right? And they're going to become partners. This is the case where one person says, I own all of it. The other one says, I own half of it. Now, in these kind of cases, you have to look for where they agree. Their agreement is on half. Well, no, they don't agree on half. The person B is agreeing that I only own half, so the other guy could own half. But the person A is saying, no, I own all of it. Right? So you can't reconcile like that. So saying, فَلِصَاحِبِ الْجَمِيعِ فَلِصَاحِبِ دَعْوَ الْجَمِيعِ. For the person who's claiming all of the house, right? ثلاثة أرباعها. He will, see, they both have evidence, so we're going to say that, okay, you get 2/3. No, you get 3/4, and the other person gets a quarter. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, so you've got person claiming the whole thing and the person claiming half. So you look at that in proportion. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, he is saying that they both have evidence. Remember, in this case, they both have evidence. In this case of double claim, and they both have evidence, right? So the person who's claiming full, he has provided evidence, but the other person has also provided evidence. So there has to be some kind of share. So it can't be half and half, because this person is claiming more. So he gets 3/4, and person B who claimed half gets a quarter, right? Why? Because, let's look at it this way. If you split the house in two halves, one, the person B is only claiming half. That means the other half, he's fine with the other person to take it. Meaning, because he's not really discussing who that is. So it could be the others. The person A is claiming that half, plus he's claiming this one. So they only have to share in the half that, in the other half. So the first half, which is devoid of a claim from person B, that person A can take. The second portion, that's the one they both are disagreeing about. So they become shareholders in that part. So it's quarter. So that way, the person A gets half plus quarter, that means 3/4, and the other person gets a quarter. That's the way Imam Abu Hanifa looks at it. He looks at it and works it out that way. Sahibain say, no, there's another way to work on it. We're going to look at it from the perspective that when one person A claims full and the other person claims half, that's half of that. So really, what's going is 1.5. Now, there's not 1.5 houses for them to be given. So what we do is we look at 1.5, 1 plus half in the context of 100%. So that's going to be 66 and 33. So it's going to be 2/3 and 1/3 rather than 3/4 and 1/4. See, the way Imam Abu Hanifa is that half is clearly person A's, because person B doesn't even claim it. And then person A and B are claiming the other half as well. Well, person A is claiming the other half as well. Person B is only claiming that half. So let's give them half of that. That's why it's 3/4 and quarter. Whereas Sahibain, they say, no, let us look at this from the inheritance issue of awl. I'm not going to go into that. You learn that in inheritance. So in that way, what we do is we just take it as proportionalize it in overall. So we take the 1.5 and we make that into how will that apply in just one. So it's going to be 2/3 and 1/3, because half is 1/3 of one full. Half is 1/3 of 1.5. So he gets 1/3 and person A gets 2/3. Imam Abu Hanifa's opinion has been chosen by many of the scholars. Right, let's move on to another one. This is a case where the two brothers both are living in the house. So it's in their possession. Remember, possession always adds another dimension. So in this case, they actually possess the house, so they're both living in there. And one of them is claiming it's all mine. The other one said, no, it's not all yours, half is mine. Who gets it in this case? Right? In the first case that we dealt with, none of them had possession over it. Somebody else had possession, so they were both freshly taking possession. In this case, they both have it in their possession, meaning they're both living in this at some level. So in this case, he's saying, سُلِّمَتِ الدَّارُ كُلُّهَا لِصَاحِبِ دَعْوَ الْجَمِيعِ. The person A who's claiming all of it, the house should be fully handed over to him, and person B should not get anything. Okay, why? Right? على وجه القضاء, based on the judgment, right? In a way of judgment. Okay, no, sorry. How? Nisfuha. So how does person A get the right to take all of it? Well, half of it, based on a judgment, just like Imam Abu Hanifa made that judgment above, because the other person is not competing him in the first half, so he gets that anyway by judgment, so that's his. وَنِصْفُهَا الْآخَرُ لَا عَلَى وَجْهِ الْقَضَاء. The second one he can't take because of judgment, because that's beyond the half that the other person is not laying claim to. And remember, they're both providing evidence. They've both provided evidence. How they have both evidence, that's something to be seen, right? But they both have evidence. So he's saying the other half, he's seen as a third person. So let's start again. They're both living in there. So it's as if, like, let's just say half is in the possession of person A and half is in possession of person B. It's going to go back to the original case. Remember, this is only a claim of ownership, not how they owned it, not how they got it. It's the what they call milk al-mutlaq, right? Just unqualified ownership, just mine. So it goes back to the masala. Now it'll make it life easier. So the first half he gets because the other person doesn't lay claim to it. So that can be a judgment that, okay, that's yours. How does he get the other half? It's because now they're both equal in terms of their claim. They're both claiming that second half. Right, if we can say second half, they're both claiming him. They both have evidence. However, the second half is in the possession of brother B. And we mentioned earlier that if it's just a claim of ownership and not why and how they claimed it, then the person who has the ownership doesn't get preference, but it's the other person who gets preference because he's establishing something beyond what is already established by his possession. His evidence doesn't really matter here. So it's like he's got no evidence, right? Because the person A, the brother A who's taken the other half, he's got the evidence to prove that as well, which is supersedes person B's evidence, because that evidence is not adding anything beyond the fact that he already is taking possession of it. So that's why, going back to that case, invoking that way of ruling, person A is going to take all of it, right? So, وَالنِّصْفُ الَّذِي فِي يَدِهِ لَا يَدَّعِيهِ صَاحِبُهُ. The first half, nobody's claiming it. The other person is not claiming it, so he gets that. لأن مدعي النصف وهو في يده سالم له ولو لم تنصرف إليه دعواه كان ظالما في إمساكه ولا قضاء بدون دعوى فيترك في يده. So yeah, he takes it. Okay. وَإِذَا تَنَازَعَا فِي دَابَّةٍ فِي يَدِهِمَا. Now this is going into a different issue, that there is an animal or a car or a vehicle, right, that they're both having their possession. So again, it could be two brothers, right, or two sisters, and it's in their possession, right, or one of them have it, and there's a dispute now as to who owns it. So either they both have possession of it, or one of them has possession of it, or somebody else has possession. It doesn't make a difference in this case. Each one of them, وَأَقَامَ كُلَّ وَاحِدٍ مِنْهُمَا بَيِّنَةً أَنَّهَا نُتِجَتْ عِنْدَهُ. Now remember, this is not a claim of just I own it. It's that, so it can't be a vehicle actually. This is only an animal, right? They're both claiming that the animal was born by them, right? It was born from an animal I had, so it was born in my possession. وأقام كل واحد منها بينة أنها نتجت عنده وذكر تاريخا مختلفا, and they both mentioned separate dates of when it was born. See, this is the date issue now. وسن الدابة يوافق. Now the assumption is that whoever says it earlier, whoever has the earlier date, it should go to them. However, there's something else that you look at here. Look at the age of the animal. So in this case, you don't just go by the earlier, you look at the age. So if someone is saying that this animal was brought 2 years ago, born 2 years ago by me, and the other one is saying it was born half a year ago. وَسِنُّ الدَّابَةِ يُوَافِقُ أَحَدَ التَّارِيخَيْنِ. Check to see the age of the animal. Which one does it match more? فهو أي صاحب التاريخ الموافق لسنها أولى. Whoever it matches more, get an expert. Oh, this is actually more 1 year old, or it's 2 year old, 2.5 years old. Okay, it's closer to that 2 year one. They will get it. So it depends on what the age of the animal is. Whoever it's more closer to, they will get it. Okay, what happens if that's difficult to determine? So وَإِذَا أُشْكِلَ ذَلِكَ, meaning you can't find out its age properly. كَانَتْ بَيْنَهُمَا. So if it's a case where they both had possession of it, then you're going to leave it as half-half for them now. They both become half-half owners. In the case where they both had possession, or somebody else, a third person had possession, and none of them had possession. In those cases, then they're both equal in that regard, because they both have possession, they both have evidence, and the date can't be worked out. So they're going to take that, right? And this is the case even if the dates are different, because in this case you can't just go by an earlier date, because the animal's date, the animal's age has to match it. And in the case where you can't really determine, because it's maybe the animal is, maybe the one is claiming 1 year old and the other is claiming is 1.2 months old, and it's difficult to determine exactly which one it is, because it's so difficult to determine by 2 months extra, right? Is it 1 month and 2 years old, 1 month 1 year old, 1 month 1 year old? It is very difficult to determine. So in that case, where the possession counts now, if it's in both of their possessions already, they're 50-50. If it's not in anybody's possession, then it's not going to be, then again, they both get 50-50. So the reason for this, just to finish off this session, is because the dates are arbitrary now. They don't matter anymore. So it's going to become half-half, right? Because, yeah. Now, if the age is completely incongruent with any of the dates they mention, then both of their evidence become invalid, right? As Hakim al-Shahid, one of our jurists, has mentioned, because it shows that they're both lying, because it doesn't match up. So in that case, whoever has it, it's going to be left with them. There's no case. Whoever has it, it just carry on with status quo. Whoever if one of them has possession of it, you just leave it there. If somebody else's possession, leave it there, because they can't claim ownership in that case. Now, if there were no dates at all in this whole scenario, and they just had evidence that they owned it somehow, then because they're both equal in that regard, and remember, this was not a case of just I own it, it was a case of it was born by me, so there's a cause mentioned. That's why you should know now what the answer is going to be. The answer is that the person, if one of them is holding on to it, if one person had possession of it, he's going to keep it. He or she is going to keep it, because it doesn't work for anybody else. Whereas, yeah, if it's in one person's possession, if they both had it and they hadn't mentioned the date, because there's quite a few scenarios here, or it was in somebody else's possession, then they both get 50-50 ownership. So hopefully that's clear. If you just listen to the whole thing again, you can write it down as the different scenarios, inshallah. So you're getting an understanding of this, hopefully. Let's do another issue before we complete today's dars. So let's just say they both, Ya Allah, they both got a similar scenario of a beast, a riding beast, a means of conveyance, right? And one is actually riding it. So one is the one on top of it. He rode it, right? So it's in his possession. He's also on it at that particular point in time, right? He's come into the gathering with it, right? So وَإِن تَنَازَعَ دَابَّةً أَحَدُهُمَا رَاكِبُهَا وَالْآخَرُ مُتَعَلِّقٌ بِلِجَامِهَا. So one person is riding it. They're not willing to get off. And the other one is holding on to its reins. So one person is holding on to the rein. The other person is on it. So who gets it now? They all both have an attachment to it. فَالرَّاكِبُ أَوْلَى. The person obviously sitting on it seems to, he's going to, and they both, everything equal, they both have evidence or no evidence or whatever. فَالرَّاكِبُ أَوْلَى. The person who's on it is going to be superior to the person just holding the reins. Because obviously he seems to have more of a connection by being on top of it rather than just grabbing the reins of it, for example. Okay, there's some other scenarios here. Let me just do that, just for good measure. If one of them if they were both on it, one of them is riding in the saddle and the other one is riding in the back saddle. So usually there's two parts of a saddle, at least in those days, right? So one is radif. Radif is the one who's in the back saddle. So the person in the front saddle and the back saddle, then the one in the front, they're going to be more likely if everything else is equal, right? If they're both in the front saddle, though they're obviously going to be one behind the other, but they're both parts of the front saddle, right? Then it's going to become both of this, because they're both in the front saddle. So essentially what we're doing here to conclude is that we're looking at the most likelihood. So if they're both in the saddle, okay, it's both of yours. We're going to do it. That's easy to do. We're going to make it half. If one's in the front saddle, the back saddle is usually a passenger, right? That doesn't show ownership, because usually the owner rides the car, drives the car, or drives the vehicle, or drives the means of conveyance. So inshallah, that gives us some more scenarios to work with. We've got some more, inshallah. We'll do that in the next session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.